I'm just going to do a brief slideshow presentation of kind of the major, the what, the why, the how of conducting evaluations in ProjectFirma. And then we'll get into a little bit of an interactive demo live in the application. And after that, I think we have some time reserved to respond to your questions. So that's what things will look like. And this is the John Day for those of you who are interested. Beautiful. Okay. So Damon mentioned who I am, but my name is Mike Jolliffe. We have a lot of Mikes here at Sitka, so I go by Jolly. And I'm a product owner, so I do a lot of interaction and going between the development team and the client, making sure that we're building what people want and is useful. So I'm familiar with the prioritization process since that's part of my kind of day-to-day job. And on the team I'm on, we're called Hawkmoth, and we kind of work in 4 code bases or 4 applications primarily. ProjectFirma, which is what we're talking about today, but we also do a lot of work in Pisces Web, which is cbfish.org. We do some work for the Washington Department of Natural Resources in their forest health tracker. And we also work in an application called Monitoring Resources, which is all about collecting, designing plans for collecting monitoring data. Okay, so let's get into the what of conducting evaluations of projects and or proposals. What is an evaluation? So, you know, my kind of definition of an evaluation is it's a systematic point in time review of specific projects or proposals with respect to predefined criteria. So just to kind of use a silly, simple example, let's say I've collected a bucket of rocks and I put some water in the bucket. The bucket represents an evaluation. You fill that bucket with a number of projects. So those are the rocks. And then you have some sort of criteria. In this case, we'll say the water represents the criteria we're using to measure the projects. And we want to know which ones are submerged, right? That's the criteria, if the rock is more or less submerged. So if it's fully submerged, it gets a certain rating. If it's partially submerged, it gets another rating. If it's not at all submerged, it gets a different rating than the other two. So sort of a way of prioritizing the level of submergence of a stone. That's kind of what we're doing. The why. So I have lifted some language from a couple of project descriptions. And if I were in charge of kind of doling out money to implementers who are proposing projects or project sponsors who are looking to get work on the ground, and I only had these descriptions to deal with, the prioritization, it would be really tough. So let's take a look at these. Project A, we're proposing to restore habitat for spring summer Chinook salmon, steelhead, and bull trout within a 2-mile reach of Big River, which is just a river I kind of made up. The project would reestablish natural river floodplain connections and processes. It would include multiple channel networks created through forcing mechanisms of large wood, ice, beaver, and rock. Okay, sounds like a good project. Project B, this project will add complexity to the Little River where additional juvenile rearing is needed. It's a large-scale restoration project that includes multiple actions on tributary creeks, such as Feeder Creek, Little River, the main stem Little River, and then Big Tree Creek. Additionally, there's other kind of work that's being coordinated alongside of it where partners have applied for a grant to look at sort of the impacts of sedimentation, temperature, and E. coli mitigation as a result of that work. So there's some cool monitoring data that could come out of that as well. Some of the described complexity work would include large wood additions, channel narrowing, and pile-assisted willow weave structures. Which one's better? And not only which one is better, but how do you transparently articulate to everyone else involved in the process, all of the stakeholders, sort of why it's better. And that's what gets us kind of to this evaluation mechanism. So it's really meant to achieve a couple of things in my mind. First is it supports your decision-making process. And because this application has multiple tenants in it, and the prioritization process for each tenant looks potentially very different, we have built this initially, what we're going to look at today, very flexibly. So you can use it in a number of different ways to achieve sort of what you're trying to achieve. Now, because it's so flexible, there are some limitations as far as how far it will get you if you have like this beautiful goal of, you know, it's tied into the rest of the application. And that is stuff we can talk about that might be cool future enhancement work. And we'll take a look at some of the enhancement work we have planned at the end of the presentation here, just to give you a flavor for the sort of things that Sitka has seen might be useful, or that people have actually recommended and we have captured, but we haven't started working on yet. So from a decision support perspective, there are a number of ways you could use this. You could use it up front. So you have a case where there are more projects or proposals than funding available to fund them. So it's really, where do we draw the line of these projects get funded, those projects don't. That's one way you can use it, is kind of upfront as the gatekeeper of good work. Another way is kind of in the middle. So you have in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end is what we're walking through here. And in the middle, you have some in-flight projects. They're in implementation. Maybe you finished year one. And what you really want to know is, okay, we're trying to adaptively manage our program. The limitation here maybe isn't funding so much, since the funding has been allocated, but it's the resources of our staff to make sure that everything is moving along smoothly. And so you can create a portfolio of projects to evaluate for which ones really need adaptive management. And you can establish some criteria for, yes, these need our attention to make sure that everything moves smoothly for the remainder of the implementation phase. And then finally, you can do kind of a retrospective of projects. You can build a portfolio of projects that have been completed that year or whatever the period is, and you can look at them. So let's pull together all maybe access projects. So we've removed culverts, replaced culverts, that sort of thing, for additional habitat channel access. What were the best and worst projects? You know, let's get together and vote on those, and why, and let's really do some learning to feed back into future proposals. You know, which projects should we really do a deep dive on and take lessons learned away from, that sort of thing. Secondly, transparency. So transparency can, you know, this evaluation process creates an agreed upon external rubric and a review process that can build trust and understanding between the funder and the person receiving funding, between all of the stakeholder partners that might be involved, various agencies, the public, that sort of thing. If they're understanding, you know, why certain projects got implemented, how they rated, what was important, what are the key features that are relevant for funding projects, you know, how do those fit in? Like, how are we looking at projects with respect to long-term goals or a vision that we have for what we're trying to accomplish at the watershed scale or at that larger temporal scale. So it can achieve that for you, in addition to giving you increased clarity. So those are a couple of the main takeaways for maybe why you would want an in-system evaluation process. So the where, in ProjectFirma, we have implemented the project evaluations as a tenant configuration option. So it could be on or off for your particular tenant instance. If it's off, just reach out to us and we can turn it on for you. And then once it's on, any administrator in the system, so one of your administrators of the application, can build project evaluations, define criteria by which you want to evaluate the projects, and then load particular projects into those evaluations. All right, so the when, we're going to look at it now. Everything that you guys will be seeing is currently out it's available in the production instances of the application. So if you're not seeing it, it might just be turned off, and just reach out to us if you want it turned on.